Rain tapped lightly against the Carter family's windows that evening, a soft reminder of the storms they had weathered over the years. Inside the warm Colorado home, Daniel Carter sat in the living room, sorting through old mail and trying to ignore the restless feeling growing in his chest. He didn't expect anything unusual that night. He certainly didn't expect his mother to rush toward him with worry in her eyes. Emma Carter rarely looked unsettled. She was the calm center of their home, the gentle balance to her husband's strict but caring nature. But when she stepped into the room, her hands trembling slightly, Daniel felt the atmosphere shift. "Daniel," she said in a low voice, glancing toward the front door as if expecting someone to walk in at any second. Then she leaned closer, her voice almost a whisper. "Hurry, before Dad returns, son." The words came out faster than she meant them to, and the weight in her tone made Daniel instantly alert. He set the mail aside and looked at her, eyebrows raised. "Mom, what's going on? Did something happen?" Emma hesitated, pressing her palm against her chest as if steadying herself. "Yes," she said softly. "Something important. Something I should have told you earlier, but I wasn't sure how." She took a slow breath and met his eyes. "It's about Lena." The name hit him like a sudden gust. His heart thudded once, sharp and unexpected. "Lena," he said quietly. "Why are we talking about her now?" Emma stepped closer and placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Because she's back in town, Daniel, and your father already knows." For a moment, the room seemed to fall into silence. Lena Brooks's first love, the girl who had once made him believe he could build a future he actually wanted. And the same girl who had left without giving him enough answers. He had spent years trying to forget the sound of her voice. The way she laughed, the way she made even the quiet days feel full. And now she was back. Daniel tried to swallow the sudden burst of emotions, but they rose to quickly surprise, confusion, and something that felt dangerously close to hope. "When did she come back?" "This afternoon," Emma said, "and your father ran into her while he was out. When he got home, he looked shaken. You know how he is. He hides every feeling behind a wall of strict advice." Daniel sighed. That was true. His father cared deeply, but never showed it in soft ways. He showed it through warnings, rules, and expectations that sometimes felt too heavy to carry. "I didn't want him to talk to you before you had a chance to think," Emma continued. "He means well, but he gets forceful when he's worried. And I know this news will affect you more than you want to admit." Daniel looked away, unable to stop the memories rushing back the last conversation he had with Lena. The unanswered questions, the heartache he had buried so carefully. Emma squeezed his arm gently. "Daniel, you may not want to hear this, but you need to. If Lena is back, there must be a reason. You two left so many things unresolved. And your father. He's already forming opinions. He'll be home soon, and if you're not prepared, he might push you into decisions you're not ready to make." Daniel stood from the couch, restless energy building inside him. "Why would she come back without telling me?" he muttered. "Why now?" "I don't know," Emma said honestly. "But I can see something in your eyes that I haven't seen in years. You still care, even if you don't want to." He walked to the window and watched the rain streak down the glass. Everything felt blurry and sharp at the same time. Memories, questions, emotions he thought he had buried. Emma came beside him, her voice steady and warm. "Daniel, listen. You don't have to decide anything tonight. But you should talk to her before your father gets home. Not because he'll stop you, but because he'll try to control the moment. And this moment should belong to you." Daniel nodded slowly. She was right. No matter how much he tried to ignore it, something inside him was already pulling him toward the answer he didn't want to face. He grabbed his jacket and stepped toward the door. Emma watched him with soft hope in her eyes. "Go," she whispered. "Talk to her. Find out why she came back." Daniel took a breath, opened the door, and stepped into the cool night air. He didn't know what waited for him out there. But one thing was clear. This time, he couldn't run from the past. It had already come back to find him. The cafe on Maple Street had always been a small comfort in Daniel's life. place where warm lights softened the edges of difficult days. As he pushed the door open, the bell above it chimed gently, mixing with the low hum of quiet conversations. The smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon wrapped around him like a familiar blanket. But tonight it didn't calm him. His pulse was too fast, his thoughts too loud. He scanned the room quickly and then stopped. Lena Brooks sat by the window, staring at the rain outside as if she were waiting for an answer from the sky. Her dark hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and she tapped her spoon nervously against her untouched tea. She looked the same and different at the same time, molder, softer, carrying stories he had never heard. She looked up the moment she sensed him. Her breath caught, her lips parted, and a small, uncertain smile formed. "Daniel," she said quietly, as if saying his name too loudly might break something fragile in the air. "You came." He walked toward her slowly, trying to hide the whirlwind inside him. "I didn't plan to," he admitted, "but I guess I needed to see you." Lena stood, her eyes searching his face for something: anger, hope, forgiveness. She didn't know which she deserved. "I'm glad you came," she whispered. He sat down and she followed. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain pressed softly against the windows, creating a strange sense of privacy around their table. Finally, Daniel asked, "When did you get back to town?" "This morning," she said. "I didn't want to cause trouble. I just needed to breathe again. And this place is the only one that feels like home." "And you didn't think to tell me?" he asked, not harshly, but with a hurt he couldn't completely hide. Lena looked down, her fingers curling around her warm mug. "I planned to, but I didn't know if you wanted to hear from me after everything." Daniel leaned back slightly, feeling an old ache rise in his chest. "I waited years for answers," he said. "Years wondering why you disappeared. Eyes filled with regret. I know, and I'm sorry, Daniel. Leaving wasn't simple. My family needed me, and everything happened so fast. I didn't know how to make you understand without hurting you." "You hurt me anyway," he said quietly. Lena nodded, accepting it. "I know I did, but I never wanted to." For a moment, the words hung between them, heavy but honest. Daniel sighed. "So why are you here now?" "After all this time?" Lena took a steady breath. "Because I never felt finished with us. No matter how far I went, your memory followed me. And recently, life changed again. I felt this pull, this need to come back and face what I left behind." Daniel didn't know how to respond. Part of him wanted to protect himself, to step away before old feelings grew too strong. But another part, the part he thought had died, felt something warm and painful waking up. Then Lena said something he didn't expect. "Your dad came to see me today." Daniel blinked. "My dad, Mark." She nodded. "He saw me outside the grocery store. I tried to walk away, but he stopped me. He asked questions. Hard ones." "What did he say?" Daniel asked, tension building. "He wanted to know why I left," she said softly. "Why I hurt you. And if I still cared about you?" Daniel's heart thudded. "He asked that?" "Yes," she said. "And he told me something else. Something that surprised me." Before Daniel could ask what it was, the cafe door swung open behind him. Cold air entered with the sound of footsteps. Lena's eyes widened as she looked past Daniel's shoulder. He turned. His father stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, his expression firm but unreadable. "Dad," Daniel whispered. Mark Carter's eyes shifted from his son to Lena, then back to his son. He walked toward them slowly, his presence filling the small cafe with a tense, uncertain energy. "We need to talk," Mark said, his voice steady but carrying something deeper, something Daniel had never heard in it before. Lena shifted nervously. Daniel felt his breath tighten. The rain outside grew heavier, as if the world itself leaned closer to listen. And in that moment, Daniel realized that this conversation was going to change everything, whether he was ready or not. Mark Carter's footsteps echoed through the cafe as he approached their table, each step tightening the air around Daniel and Lena. The rain outside pressed against the windows in steady waves, almost matching the rhythm of Daniel's heartbeat. He had never expected his father to walk into this moment, especially not when his emotions were already stretched thin. Mark stopped at the edge of their table and removed his wet coat, shaking off the rain. His face held a mix of determination and something gentler that he rarely allowed others to see. He looked at Daniel first, then at Lena, and the silence that followed felt heavier than any words. "Dad!" Daniel finally said, trying to steady his voice. Mark nodded once. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," he said quietly. "But we need to talk. All of us." Lena's hands tightened around her mug. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "I didn't expect to see you again today." Mark sighed as he pulled out a chair. "Neither did I, but I didn't like the way our earlier conversation ended. And I realized I might have said things too quickly." Daniel frowned. "What conversation?" Mark settled into the chair, facing both of them. "I saw Lena earlier today," he explained, "and I asked her why she left without explaining anything. I wanted to understand what happened between the two of you." Daniel stared at him, surprised. "Why would you get involved in that?" "Because," Mark said, meeting his son's eyes, "I watched you fall apart after she left, and I didn't know how to help you then. Maybe I'm trying to help now." Lena lowered her gaze, guilt flickering across her face. "He didn't pressure me," she said. "He just asked questions I didn't expect." Mark nodded slowly. "You two were young, but your feelings were real. And when she left, I thought you'd bounce back. But you didn't. You shut down, Daniel. You stopped dreaming. You stopped letting people in." Daniel felt that old ache rise again. He hadn't known his father noticed any of that. Mark leaned forward. "I know I don't show emotion well. I know I push more than I comfort. But you're my son. And whether you admit it or not, Lena was the one person who brought light into your life back then." Lena swallowed, her voice soft when she finally spoke. "I didn't want to hurt him. I wish I could go back and fix what I broke." Daniel looked between them. He wasn't angry, just overwhelmed. "What are you trying to say, Dad?" Mark took a deep breath, the rain beating harder behind him. "I'm saying you two deserve to talk honestly. Without fear. Without running away. Without letting misunderstandings decide your future." Lena blinked, confused. "You think we should try again?" "I think," Mark said carefully, "that you both have unfinished feelings. And life doesn't always give people second chances. When it does, you shouldn't ignore it." Daniel leaned back, stunned at the softness in his father's voice. Mark Carter was many things: strict, serious, often distant, but he was never someone who encouraged emotional risks. Hearing him speak like this felt like seeing a different version of him, one Daniel didn't realize existed. Lena spoke up again, her voice trembling slightly. "Mr. Carter, I told you this earlier. I didn't come back to disrupt Daniel's life. I only came because I felt I owed him the truth. And because I needed to face what I left behind. I didn't expect anything more." Mark nodded, "And I respect that. But the truth is, you both care. You're both scared. And someone needs to say what neither of you is willing to say." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He wasn't ready to hear truths he'd spent years burying. But he also knew his father was right. Something between him and Lena still lived quietly, painfully, and powerfully. Before Daniel could speak, his phone buzzed in his pocket, loud enough to cut through the tension. He pulled it out, expecting maybe a work message or a reminder. But it was a text from his mother. "Are you okay, son?" Dad rushed out of the house. "Just don't shut down. Listen to your heart." Daniel stared at the message, feeling the weight of the moment settle deeper inside him. He looked up at his father, who gave a small nod. He looked at Lena, whose eyes held hope and fear at the same time. The rain continued to fall outside, steady and insistent, as if urging him forward. And Daniel understood whatever happened next, he needed to stop running from the truth he'd avoided for far too long. Because this moment, right here in this small cafe, is going to change everything. Daniel held his phone tightly, the small glow of the screen reflecting the tension in his chest. His mother's message repeated in his mind: "Don't shut down. Listen to your heart." The words were gentle, a quiet push toward honesty. He looked up at Lena, her eyes wide and searching, waiting for him to make a choice he had avoided for years. Outside, the rain had softened into a light drizzle, tapping softly on the cafe windows like a gentle heartbeat. Urging him forward, he took a slow breath, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions. The past, the heartbreak, the unanswered questions, the longing was suddenly overwhelming. Lena had returned not to provoke old pain, but to mend it, to find the connection they had lost. Daniel's father, sitting across from them, watched silently, his usually stern face softened by understanding. Mark had said everything that needed to be said about courage and truth, but now it was Daniel's turn to act. I never stopped caring, Daniel said, his voice breaking slightly, raw with years of emotion he had hidden. I was scared. Scared I'd get hurt again, or that life would pull us apart before we even had a chance to try. He swallowed, feeling a weight lift slightly with each word. But seeing you here, I realize I can't let fear control me anymore. Lena's hand trembled as she reached across the small table, her fingers brushing lightly against his. Daniel, she whispered, I came back not to demand anything, but because I needed to face what I left behind. I wanted to see if we still mattered to each other. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. But there was hope there too, fragile and beautiful. He took her hand fully into his own, holding it with care and a quiet determination. We do matter, he said, letting the truth settle between them. We always have. His chest felt tight, full of emotions he had long tried to ignore. But finally, he could breathe again, lighter than he had in years. Mark leaned back in his chair, letting out a small sigh, one of relief more than anything else. It's about time, he said quietly, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. I was worried you'd both keep running from what you wanted most. Sometimes the heart knows the answers before the mind does. Daniel glanced at his father, a small, grateful smile appearing. He had expected anger, lectures, or some stern advice, but instead he found support, subtle and unspoken. Mark had stepped back, giving them the space to speak their truth. That gesture alone gave Daniel courage he hadn't known he still possessed. Turning back to Lena, Daniel saw a mixture of relief and nervous excitement on her face. The years apart had changed them both, shaped them with experiences and choices. But the connection between them, the quiet pull, the shared memories, the deep care, was still alive. So we try, he asked softly, not needing to explain what try meant. It meant openness, honesty, taking small steps forward, and allowing themselves to trust each other again. Lena nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek as she smiled. Yes, she said, slowly, carefully, but fully. I want to try too. Outside, the clouds parted slightly, and a soft glow of evening light spilled through the cafe windows. The world felt still for a moment, as if waiting to witness this quiet reunion. This small miracle of two people choosing love over fear. Daniel and Lena sat there, hands intertwined, hearts racing yet calm, both aware that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter. Mark stood, brushing rain from his coat. I'll leave you two to it, he said with a small smile. Life is complicated enough without getting in the way of something real. Just don't let it slip away this time. Daniel nodded, understanding the weight of his father's words. We won't, he said, and meant it. Lena squeezed his hand. I never thought I'd have this chance again, she said softly, but now that I do, I'm not letting go. Daniel looked at her, feeling the warmth of hope spread through his chest. Neither am I, he replied. The fear, the sadness, the distance, all of it was still there, but it no longer controlled them. Together, they could face it, step by step, moment by moment. The rain outside eased further, leaving a soft mist that shimmered in the streetlights. The world felt fresh, new, like a page turning. Daniel realized something he hadn't before. Life wasn't about running from heartbreak, fear, or missed opportunities. It was about recognizing them, learning from them, and having the courage to choose what truly mattered. In that quiet cafe. with soft light falling on their faces and hands still joined. Daniel and Lena allowed themselves to hope again. Their hearts were cautious but open, their past acknowledged but no longer holding them back. And in that moment, Daniel finally felt the truth he had been searching for all these years. Love could return, if only you had the courage to welcome it. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt completely at peace. The storm outside had passed, but inside, something greater was rising, a new beginning. Built on honesty, courage, and the quiet strength of two hearts choosing each other. And as he looked at Lena, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The choice had been made. The heart had spoken. And life, at last, felt full again.